Before I begin, let me just acknowledge that most of what I will say here today is part of my published article entitled Reflexive Liberative Filipino Feminist Ethics, published in 2020 in Critique, an online journal of philosophy, volume 14, pages 64 to 97. I began to take interest in lived feminisms, having been surrounded by feminists whom I considered friends. We would talk about our personal experiences within our respective families. Some of these feminist friends and acquaintances are the hardcore feminists that I know of. They are active in the women's movement, they are firm, and they strongly articulate the movement's fight for women's rights. But then when they begin talking about how their situation at home is, I sense some contradictions. Some of these feminists admitted having philandering husbands. But even if they want to get out of the relationship, they stay for their children's sake. Others said it can still be ironed out. After all, they have endured long years of being together. Some of them admitted performing very traditional duties as a wife and a mother at home. Some related they even regularly make coffee for their husbands. Some say they are in charge of household tasks and child rearing, even if they also work like their husbands. In their words, some of these feminists have agreed to assume the double burden. So it remains a puzzle for me. Why do these feminists seem to live life full of contradictions? They mobilize in the streets to rally for the rights of women, but inside the home, they themselves turn submissive and traditional. But I don't judge them. I choose to explore their lives because I wanted to surface the seeming contradictions. I thought there must be a reason behind all this. Maybe it is the kind of ethics or morality developing among Filipino feminists. These musings led me to explore the lived feminisms of Filipino feminists. Instead of casting judgment, I decided to explore their lives and find out the reasons behind the contradictions, which I found out later on to be the kind of ethics emerging among Filipino feminists. It is apparent that the status of Filipino women is slowly reaching a higher ground in terms of active participation in society and fighting against patriarchal culture. At the same time, they are also known to give value to familial relationships, cultural heritage, and religion, which are largely influenced by patriarchy. What is important at this point is to find out how one aspect, that is, women's emancipation and fight against patriarchal culture, affects the other, that is, women's valuation of family, culture, and religion in one line of struggle. One way to find this out is by looking into the ethical dimension of feminists. This basically involves their views on how one ought to live life. This also involves their concepts of right, good, correct, valuable, appropriate, and the like. Feminist ethics could provide some light as to how women work to achieve the feat of empowerment. Experiences showed how some feminists struggle with actual application of feminist principles to their everyday dealings with people around them. Some have had difficulties resolving conflicts between their feminism and actual family life. Others have made equally difficult choices in pursuing their intimate relationships. To be able to understand this, the ethics of lived feminisms in the Philippines had to be looked into. So I asked, what are ethical issues in Filipino feminists' lives? How do Filipino feminists address ethical issues? And what is the emerging Filipino feminist ethics? In the process of finding answers to these questions, I explored the lived experiences of Filipino feminists to understand what the emerging Filipino feminist ethics is and how it is formed. Ethics has been defined in various ways. But one adherent to feminist ethics, namely Margaret Urban Walker, says that ethics shapes both the intra and interpersonal lives of individuals. Surely, whatever ethical principles are acquired from individual, institutional, and societal levels of experience, either the principles are reproduced or are modified depending on what goes on between and among people. Thus, it is relevant to look into the resident ethical dimension in feminists' lived experiences to be able to account for the woman's voice and the woman's experience that had been left out in mainstream ethics. Urban Walker's ethics or morality, and I quote, is a socially embodied medium of mutual understanding and negotiation between people over their responsibility for things open to human care and response, end of quote. This concurs with the idea of feminism that values individual expression of feelings, choices, relationships, and understandings through shared responsibility. In the attempt to understand what the emerging Filipino feminist ethics is, four important variables were considered: the personal characteristics of self-identifying feminists, their life experiences, the formation of feminist consciousness, and challenges to mainstream or male-centered ethics. Personal characteristics refer to the demographic profile of participants. Self-identifying feminists are those who consider and actually label themselves as feminists. Life experiences refer to personal, everyday experiences, while feminist consciousness refers to understanding the woman problem and making conscious effort to end the problem. Mainstream or male-centered ethics refers to values imposed by men and concepts of good and bad in accordance to the male perspective. Personal characteristics of self-identifying feminists are sex, age, education, occupation, and civil status, while life experiences are intimate relationships, family life, and involvement in feminism. Intimate relationship refers to a personal, private connection with someone. Family life refers to a setup or arrangement which accounts for the manners and activities of individual family members. Both personal characteristics of self-identifying feminists and life experiences influence the formation of feminist consciousness. Under formation of feminist consciousness are qualities of being a feminist and feminist values. Formation of feminist consciousness results to challenges to mainstream or male-centered ethics. These challenges are non-traditional concept of family, alternative to marriage, feminist spirituality, and reflexivity of the nationalist and women's movement. In whole, this framework described the emergence of Filipino feminist ethics. The 22 participants of this study are all women. 3 of them identify themselves as lesbians. The participants represent various age groups, namely young, middle age, and senior. The young feminists are in their 30s, while the middle age are in their 40s. Senior feminists are age 50 and above. 6 are young feminists, 8 are middle age, and 8 are senior feminists. The participants' age ranges from 30 to 72 years old. Education of majority of the participants are highly educated. 4 of them are college graduates, 9 participants have graduate degrees, and 4 have postgraduate degrees. 5 are high school graduates, and half of the participants are NGO workers. 8 are from the academe, 2 are government workers, while 1 participant works for the media industry and at the same time serves as a council member of an NGO. 4 out of 8 participants from the academe also works for an NGO. The participants whose main occupation is NGO work are involved in various sectors. 4 NGOs focus on the women's sector, 1 on women and children, and another one on women and fisher folks. 1 NGO has programs on farmers and fisher folks, 1 on farmers, and another 2 on fisher folks. Only 1 NGO focuses on labor. The 4 participants from the academe who are also involved in NGOs work for the women's sector, and the labor sector, 1 NGO. The sole participant from the media industry also works for an NGO on women. Regarding the participants' civil status, half or 11 are married, 2 are single, 1 is a nun and the other has a child, 3 are in domestic partnership, 2 of them are in same-sex relationship, and 1 is in an incestuous relationship. 3 are separated, 1 of them has a partner, but they are not living in together. And 3 are widows, but 1 of them currently has a partner. Along with personal characteristics, life experiences play a role in shaping feminist consciousness. These life experiences refer to intimate relationships, family life, and involvement in feminism. Based on responses, participants define intimate relationship based from their experiences. They mention qualities to maintain intimate relationship. Some of them identify challenges to it. Participants associate intimate relationship with private property. This means each is a private property of the other. On the ideas of exclusivity and mutuality, they believe that there should be no other parties involved. Once another party enters the scene, it breaks the exclusivity clause and alters the character of the relationship. One adds that it would be hard for her to be in an intimate relationship with 2 or more individuals, such as threesome. The participant in a same-sex relationship shares that she finds it easier to connect with another woman, and because she and her partner share the same values, they are exclusive or monogamous by choice. Another adds that intimate relationship is physical or sexual. Another participant says that intimate relationship need not be within the bounds of marriage and between opposite sex. One shares her incestuous intimate relationship with her third-degree cousin. There are qualities of an intimate relationship that the participants believe should be maintained. Majority of the participants say it is important to be friends. Some consider their partner as roommate or companion. It is also important to have constant communication. Another adds commitment and respect for each other. Independence is also valued. Some keep their own money, their husbands keep their own. Some say they have their own activities or projects separate from their activities with their husband. They say it is important to maintain one's own identity within a relationship and that the relationship has to be nurturing so as to enhance each other as a person. It is also important that the spouse is part of or supportive of the activist or revolutionary movement like themselves. It is also important that the spouse is supportive of their feminist ideals, like in the case of some participants. Some say they never had major problems and that the secret to their happy and peaceful marriage is the application of feminist values in their lives. So what are the challenges to intimate relationship? An issue regarding intimate relationship is the recognition of economic disparities with their partner. There is also unequal gender division of labor in some cases. Before, one husband had a view of the tasks for women and tasks for men. 10 years ago, they both decided that the husband should add one reproductive task in what he's doing, that is, doing groceries. He's doing that until now. For other participants, non-traditional relationships work for them compared to marriage. Even if uncertainties in their relationship continue to hound them, because they are into domestic partnership, they continuously exert effort to make it work and plan to stay as long as they live harmonious lives and they do not hurt each other. A participant says she drove her partner out of the house when it became clear that she cannot stop her partner's affair. Unlike another participant who left the house, she reasons out she's working for gender issues and helping other women, yet she had a problem with her husband's infidelity. Eventually, the need for someone to be always there for her prevailed. Instead of getting separated, she proposed an open relationship. Participants describe their actual family setup. Child-rearing experiences from their immediate and current families are also shared. In terms of family setup, participants share various forms of family: single, nuclear, and extended. They say it is important that there is a bond between and among people whom you consider as family. There could also be an extended family, while others consider same-sex partners and childless couple as family. In a broader sense, participants extend family to non-relatives like members of organizations and movements they belong to. Some of them include non-humans like birds, plants, and animals as family. Child-rearing experiences also affect the formation of feminist consciousness. In turn, it also affects the way feminists rear their own children. Feminists either adopt or reject the child-rearing practices they experienced in their own method of child-rearing. Some participants say they have strict and traditional parents, while others say otherwise. With regard to their own children, the participants are as liberal or more liberal than the type of child-rearing practices they experienced. They say they do not impose rules. They let their children explore and express themselves. They recognize the importance of open communication so her children can talk freely about anything. When it comes to toys, they let their children decide whether they will choose toys for boys or girls. Some prefer gender-neutral toys like stuffed toys, building blocks, and books. They also involve themselves in children's interests and activities like signing on Facebook and engaging in marksmanship. Most of them do not believe and veer away from physical punishment as a form of child discipline. In fact, one participant says she felt guilty when she hit her child and she never did it again. Some participants share their children know that they, as mothers, have the main say when it comes to reproductive aspects of their lives. When it comes to sexuality, they give informed choices. It is their children's choice whether to adopt or reject mainstream values. One shares she supported her eldest daughter, who is a lesbian. Her daughter has a same-sex partner with a child. This child she accepts and treats as their family's own. When her daughter is still in the process of coming out, she was there to help her out. She accompanied her to various libraries. She lent her daughter books to read. In the end, when her daughter decided to out herself, she and her family supported her fully. She has always been proud of her eldest daughter. Some of them share how conflict with their household help becomes an issue. They also mention privacy and space as main reasons why they do not want household help. Responses show that participants' involvement in feminism are rooted in their activism through student movements, NGOs, and revolutionary movement. Participants are activists first before becoming feminists. Others trace out their involvement in feminism through the academe. They are also referred to as intellectual feminists. But even when they were students, they recognized the inequality between men and women, particularly in the movement. They also share that they do not have women's issues in the agenda. Other participants also say that their becoming a feminist was rooted in their experiences as student activists since the first quarter storm. For the majority, feminism comes much later in the course of their involvement in nationalist organizations. For some, that is an advantage. A participant says she started to become a feminist when she interviewed violence against women survivors during a forum of the World Council of Churches in 1977. Some participants share their involvement in women's work. Their ideology then centered on nationalism and not feminism. They add they did not experience oppression. They only learned more about feminism when they were tasked to write a module on women's issues in the academe. Another was introduced to feminism by a colleague. Others learned about the term feminism upon joining a women's organization. Their appreciation of feminism is more on the theoretical side. One says she has no feminist consciousness then, but she already had gender questions. Some of these women even went to pioneer feminist or women's organizations in their time. Some participants say the turning point of their feminism was through the academe, although one says it is deeply rooted in her experience of sexual abuse. Being a feminist came much later. Another shares the same experience. She says she learned feminism from the books, and she describes her involvement in a women's studies program as academic in nature. So, in terms of formation of feminist consciousness, here are the qualities of being a feminist that the participants identified. So, they identified several qualities they possess as a feminist, like independence, decisiveness, assertiveness, integrity, and critical thinking. Participants also mentioned other qualities perceived as strengths and weaknesses. Strengths include self-trust, resilience, and objectivity, while weaknesses are lack of self-confidence and being emotional. According to one participant, and I quote, "I became independent because they let me have my way. I'm more open to explore things. Because I was surrounded with many people in our home, many discussions were also allowed at a time when children should not be exposed to such discussions." They say it is important to be economically independent. And then another participant shares that her mother maintains a business up to now and always keeps herself busy. In terms of decisiveness, they say they stand up to their decisions, even if it counters against the opinions of majority. They also say assertiveness is needed in fighting for women's rights. Some of them discuss integrity in relation to how they value the insight that the personal is political. Critical thinking is also important to them, but at the same time, it has emotional dimension. In terms of strengths, some participants mention self-trust, resilience, and objectivity. They explain that self-trust emanates not from their skills, but from their convictions. One says she has the ability to objectively view the issues at hand instead of being affected emotionally. Another says she is able to cope with any problems because she analyzes it. In terms of weaknesses, some participants say they lack self-confidence. One does not want to be in the limelight, and she knows that there are more deserving people who are more articulate in explaining issues than her. Another gets emotionally affected with vow cases she is handling. The participants also talk about their values as feminists. Among the values they share are motherhood and family. They also share work and contribution to society. Some participants say being a mother is in itself an achievement. They add that recognition from the family that they are activists is also a personal achievement. Family is very important, and it has a critical role in the lives of some participants. It is described as a refuge and support group, especially during critical moments in the participants' lives. Because one participant is busy in her activist work, she was not able to prioritize her children, while another shares her family has no important role when she was an activist. All these change when they each experience personal dilemmas. They describe their family as very supportive and understanding of their activism and helpful anytime they need help. For some participants, their greatest achievement is work-related, like supervising a general education program at Miriam College and receiving a scholarship or managing a television station that is traditionally dominated by men is an achievement. The work in a television station enables her to utilize the power of broadcast media to promote women empowerment. The participants also mentioned their contribution to society. One says the sisterhood in Makalaya enabled many women to find their own voices and assert their rights. Some say their legacy is creating awareness on women's issues by founding, for example, the Institute of Women's Studies. So what are the challenges to mainstream or male-centered ethics? From the participants' qualities of being a feminist and the feminist values they uphold, there are many challenges to mainstream ethics that emerge. These challenges refer to non-traditional concept of family life, like same-sex relationship and childlessness, and alternative to marriage, like cohabitation, emerging feminist spirituality, and reflexivity of the nationalist and women's movements. They say patriarchy has been shattered. Women have gone a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Some participants say they do not believe in marriage or they do not want to get married. However, some of them recall they felt pressure from the parents of their husbands who wanted them to get married. One participant shares that her future husband threatened to leave her if she will not marry him. Others feel there was a need to elevate their relationship to a higher level. One says that marriage should have a positive effect on the persons involved, while others believe marriage is not a guarantee of lasting relationship, nor is it a guarantee that the partner will be faithful. Some participants recommend cohabitation if it works for the couple and if it will jibe with their personalities. In terms of non-traditional concept of family, some of them prefer same-sex relationship than a heterosexual one. Another adds that childlessness does not affect her idea of a complete family. For activists who consider themselves atheist or agnostic, they say there is a shift. They find themselves on a spiritual journey. One participant says she learned to dwell into other religions aside from Roman Catholicism. She says there's no contradiction there if one can live with it. On the other hand, others say their spirituality changes over time. In general, they say the ethics of the nationalist and feminist movements should be challenged from time to time. One shares her personal conflict with another feminist when the latter became her husband's other woman. Another issue that is prevalent in the feminist movement is the insight that the personal is political. Before, marital problems and gay issues were not made public. Eventually, these issues are being addressed. Some participants share their struggles on the inclusion of women's issues in the nationalist or revolutionary movements they belong to. They also say the movement should also take into consideration women's control over their bodies. The party does not allow living in. Although there is divorce, it is not easily granted. Within the party, one says even getting pregnant is planned. I quote one participant, "It has to be planned kasi resources will be needed. Your personal security." According to them, the assertive women in the movement experienced criticisms from men and even women. They say men belittle women's issues. The men would also resort to sexist jokes. Women were also branded different things. But the participants say there should not be hierarchy of class over gender. They add it is not automatic that if the country was freed, the women will also be freed. These participants went on to form autonomous women's movements. Feminists from different generations also have different concerns. They point out that feminism is dynamic. So based from the findings, ethical issues arise out of intimate relationship, family life, and involvement in feminism. Women are expected to subscribe to traditional concepts of intimate relationship and family life. Otherwise, they will face ethical dilemmas. They are supposed to maintain a nuclear family, get into an intimate relationship only if married, keep the marriage and family intact at all costs, accept that it is all right for men to philander around, and manage the household tasks. In addition, if they choose to be involved in feminism, they will likewise face ethical dilemmas. Women's issues are not prioritized in male-dominated movements, whose main thrust is class and nationalist struggles. There is also an equal relation of men and women within the movement, as reflected in unequal role assignments once women give birth. Women's pregnancy is planned, and there is little recognition of the reproductive rights of women. Why is this the case? Filipino women are viewed in Philippine society as weak, passive, submissive, and dependent because of the patriarchal culture. As feminists, they do not blindly and immediately accept or reject life decisions that are dictated by tradition. Instead, they critically examine and subject these life decisions to careful scrutiny and evaluation before they either reject or accept it. Rejecting it may mean total disregard of tradition, while accepting it may mean striking the balance between tradition and feminist values. Either of these may have good or bad consequences, but what is important is that feminists stand by their informed decision. So the Filipino feminist ethics that emerge out of this study is what I refer to as reflexive liberative. Reflexive because feminists have choices and understand the choices they make. They either reject or accept mainstream or male-centered ethics based on whatever works for them and other people. Reflexive further means continuous self-examination where ethical decisions are based on changing contexts and situations and in consideration of the greater good. Liberative because the choice is supposed to be not only for the benefit of feminists as individual or group, but for humanity as a whole. The liberative aspect is determined by the feminist as a moral agent. Being a feminist means there is recognition of the fact that women suffer from inequality and there is conscious effort to change this situation. Society's emphasis on marriage as a symbol of intimacy or intimate relationship has shifted with the rise of modern society. The concept of romantic love is present and is recognized in all cultures, but nowadays, it is not anymore necessarily linked to marriage. Some of the factors that contribute to this shift are the growing number of work outside the home, the rise of women's movements, and the spread of ideals of equality and rights. Even in societies where marriage is still the rule, success in marriage is still considered as an end result of compatibility and companionship rather than love and intimacy. Through the years, the presence of children adds up to the factors affecting successful marriages. In fact, it has become an extremely important consideration among couples' decision-making processes. In recent years, some unmarried couples, heterosexual or same-sex, practice cohabitation or living in. Such practice goes beyond societal approval and/or recognition. The above mentioned are factors that affect Filipino feminists' reflexivity and liberality. These factors or developments serve as reasons for the changing contexts and ethics in lived feminisms. Though women are exposed to liberal ideas, for example, in the academe, in the movements and organizations, some traditional concepts remain, like comparing intimate relationships to property relations, or thinking in terms of property, investment, suffering in silence in the face of abuse, violence, or neglect, or being afraid of being humiliated or putting the family name in a bad light, or passively accepting that infidelity is natural among men. Also, society measures a woman in terms of her relationships. If they are long and fruitful or successful, or if they are short and fleeting or frowned upon, and by extension, the type of family she is able to manage or foster. If it becomes a broken family, this is perceived as a failure, the burden of which rests solely on the woman. Some women unconsciously hope for their version of happily ever after, of a man that will come along and take care of them. On the other hand, some women realize that this could turn out to be a painful illusion if taken too far. Thus, they would rather be their own person, a whole, fully functioning being rather than half of one. Inside the family, each member has very defined roles based on society's expectations and standing mores. Being women, they are expected by society to perform certain roles: caregiver, nurturer, teacher, household manager, while the men or husbands are expected to be providers for the family unit. Though, as feminists, they express dissatisfaction in being relegated to such roles, they still conform to such expectations. Some do try to reinvent these roles. Affluent women are able to hire help to do the drudgery of housework, but this arrangement is far from the ideal, as it may also become a source of conflict later on. Culture, religion, and education heavily dictate how a woman is treated in society. But once circumstances are changed, for example, a stay-at-home mom suddenly working or going back to school, other changes in their home life emerges, and no longer does the same conservative ideas apply. Though the self-identifying feminists are trying to change the traditional roles that women play both inside and outside the home, this remains a monumental task, as they cannot truly break free from all deeply ingrained conservative cultural conditioning unless a more comprehensive change is forthcoming. Throughout history, the role and status of Filipino women have slowly changed from non-participation in economic and political spheres and confinement to domestic life to their politicalization and involvement in the feminist movement to a great extent. Filipino women's reactions to their experiences of the patriarchal culture have also slowly changed their characteristics from being weak, submissive, and passive to being strong, independent, and critical. Indeed, history had taught Filipino women how they ought to live their lives. Every day is a struggle in feminist lives. They deal with ethical issues, mindful not only of their own, but also the collective good. The reflexive, liberative Filipino feminist ethics emphasizes choice and, when applied, will lead to a more caring and just society. This kind of ethics could further shape the contours of feminism in the Philippines and provide guidance as to how women ought to act and work to further achieve empowerment.